StreetSmarts, How to Avoid Being a Victim with Detective J.J. Bittenbinder has been made possible in part by Burger King Corporation. Burger King is proud to support this program as part of its commitment to education. At Burger King Corporation, we believe that education enriches everyone. And by the financial contributions of viewers like you.
The gun was pressed to my temple. Someone in the
store. I was
store
incapable of responding.
I felt it was over. With that gun, I felt that
He just put a knife to my throat.
Right down the road.
He told me he was going to kill me.
They got me down on the ground and started beating me.
Took a knife and plunged in my son's heart.
I had been left with 2 .38s in the head.
You got to play it like you're all alone out there. You have to play it like there are no police.
Ladies and gentlemen, Detective J.J. Bittenbinder.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is J.J. Bittenbinder, and I'm a policeman. I've been a police officer since 1971. I've been a homicide detective for the last 15 years. I've handled double murders, triple murders, robberies, rapes. I've interviewed over 1,000 victims, witnesses, and offenders of violent street crime in Chicago. What I want to do today is I'm going to explain to you, number one, how victims are selected. I'm going to tell you how not to be selected. And I'm going to tell you what to do if you are selected. First thing I got to tell you is there are no absolutes. There is not one magic paragraph that I can read over you. There's not a book that I can stick under your arm and have you take home, or a videotape that I can make you watch that's going to make you safe in every situation. There just isn't. But hopefully that I can explain your options to you, show you what you can do and what you can't do, and explain to you why they work and why they don't. First of all, there are 3 rules you have to understand. Number one, it can happen to you. It can happen to anybody. It can happen to them any place, any time. But it can happen to you. None of this stuff where you think is only going to happen to somebody else. It can happen to you. You can be the victim of a violent crime. Number 2, I want you to understand that the bad guys do not all look like Charles Manson or like Bluto. The people, they look like you and they look like me. They look just like anybody else. Those are the bad guys. So you don't expect them to walk around with marks on them. And number 3, it's your responsibility for your own safety. You have got to be responsible. You require everybody else that you put your life into their hands, you require them to be responsible. You require them to have a plan. You require them to be prepared. Here we have an airline pilot. You wouldn't get on an airplane with this pilot unless you were really sure that she knew what to do. If you're at 40,000 feet and that left engine quit, you don't want her to pick up that microphone and say, "Oh, tower, tower, oh, tower, tower, what do I do?" You require her to know what to do because you put your life in her hands. You require her to have a plan. She has got to be prepared. Well, you're responsible for yourselves, to yourselves. You got to have a plan. Now, they don't have to be real sophisticated plans. Some of these things can be quite simplistic. Simplest plan I ever heard of was a woman at 47. She's waiting for a bus at 47th Street. She's standing on the corner. She's got her purse over her shoulder, and she's standing there. And she notices the goof, and here he comes, like he comes out of the woodwork, and he's coming toward her, and he's, oh, man, here it comes. She doesn't even acknowledge him. She's just holding on to her purse. And he got closer And he got closer, and just as he made his final turn and approached her for the final time, she looked at him and she says, "Don't I know your mother?" He says, and he didn't do anything because he wasn't sure. Now that's as basic as you can get. And it only has to work once. She had something to say. She had something to do. She was not ill-prepared. She had something. Well, that's what you've got to do. You've got to be prepared. You've got to have a plan. Now, there's 4 areas of the plan that we're going to talk about today. The first one is making you a tougher target. The second one is denying privacy. The third one is attracting attention. And the fourth one is doing something to this guy. Taking some kind of action toward this guy. Let's talk about the tough target. Tough targets don't get selected. It's real easy. The tougher target does not get selected. The most vulnerable or the weakest target is the one that gets picked to play the game. You don't want to be picked. You don't want to be selected. And there's a lot of ways not to be selected. Let me give you an example. Here we got 2 people. Now these 2 people have 2 apartments, and these apartments are right across the back porch from each other. If you went up the back stairs, you will find that they have a common back porch. These 2 apartments are exactly the same, except this woman, she went to the pet store, and she bought a dog bowl. She bought a big dog bowl. She filled it with water, wrote the word killer on it, and put it outside of her door. Now, when Mickey the Mope comes up the back stairs to do one of these apartments, to burglarize one of these apartments, which one is he not going to pick? See how easy this is? Not being selected is the most important thing that you can do. Tough targets are not selected. Now, I only tell one real joke, so I'm going to tell it here. 2 guys are in a tent. They're sleeping in a tent in the middle of the woods. And a bear starts to claw his way through the back of the tent. The 2 guys tumble out of the tent right in front. One guy jumps up and starts to run. The other guy jumps up and starts to put his gym shoes on. And the first guy says, "What are you putting your gym shoes on for, pal? You can't outrun that bear." And he says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. All I have to do is outrun you." Same lesson. You can't be the weakest one, the most vulnerable one there. You cannot be that one. You ever see these nature shows that they have on television where the antelopes are running in a herd and the lions are sneaking up on them? Have you ever seen the lion go after the swiftest or the strongest of the antelopes? He picks the weakest one, only they call it the thinning of the herd or the survival of the fittest. But it's the same thing. He's picking the most vulnerable one. These people are stronger than you are. They're swifter than you are. But you're probably smarter than they are. You know, when we throw these bad guys up against the wall and search them, we don't find any Mensa cards in their pockets. And I don't think we have any out-of-work rocket scientists making license plates in Joliet. But you're dealing with people, although they have excellent instincts, they have hockey score IQs. But they pick their victims. And they pick their victims on this vulnerability scale. The most vulnerable one is the one who gets it. It's targets of opportunity. If they have an opportunity to steal a purse, they'll steal a purse. If they have an opportunity to steal a car, they'll steal a car. Whatever is there, that's what they'll do. It doesn't mean that you have to be tough in one area. You got to be tough in all your areas. Let me show you something. Who's got a purse? Let me see your purse. Let me see the. Oh yeah, that's a beauty. That's a 40-pounder. All right, I only generalize once, and I'm going to do that here. This is the way that the American woman walks down the street. She walks down the street with a shoulder bag over her shoulder, coat buttoned up, and her other thing. American women always carry two things. And she walks down the street like she's looking for quarters, just like this. Well, you can't do that. You got to walk around with your head up. You do. You remember, predators walk around looking at other things. The people who are prey walk around looking at the ground, just like in the animal world. The predator is always looking out, and the sheep or the rabbit is looking at the ground. So if you don't want to be a prey, look like a predator. I'm going to show you three women as they walk down the street. And we're going to see who's the most vulnerable. First one we call Barbara. Now, Barbara is a businesswoman. Business Barbara. Business Barbara's got her purse over her shoulder. She has a trench coat, her briefcase, her umbrella, and she's walking down the street. And she's concentrating on business. She's not thinking about safety, she's thinking about business. And she's walking down the street and the purse is behind her. And as she's walking down the street, it swings around like this and it bounces just as she walks down the street. Now that's woman number one. Woman number two, now she's a little tougher. So we give her a tougher name. We give her a T name. We'll call her Tess. Okay. Now Tess carries her purse over her shoulder like this, and if there's a flap on the purse, it's toward her. And when she walks down the street, she's got this, baby. She walks down the street, well, she's holding on to this purse. She's got it. That's woman number two. Now, woman number three is real tough. So I call her Rita. Now, Rita keeps her purse just like Tess does. Only Rita puts her purse on first and then puts her coat on. Now, these three women are walking down the street, one right behind the other, in any order you want to put them in. And the goof comes out of the alley to steal a purse. Whose purse is he going to take? Every time. Not because she's younger or older or weaker or stronger, but because she's more vulnerable. That's what he does. So the idea is you cannot be the most vulnerable one there. You got to be strong. There's only one way to carry a purse safer than the way Rita carries it. And that is with a fanny pack. Weigh this one out. Two women are walking down the street. One's got the little pocketbook on her arm and the other's got a fanny pack that nobody can see. Which one is the most vulnerable target? These are easy to do. Another thing we got to talk about, once the victim is selected. All right, let me put it to you this way. A shark is the most perfect killing and eating machine that God ever created. He never made anything that kills and as effectively and as efficiently as a shark does. It is absolutely magnificent the way it does these things. But even a shark does not come by at 35 miles an hour and snap somebody's head off. That's not what happens. What does the shark do? The shark comes off and it wants to see what it's doing. So it gets real close to people. But a shark has bad eyesight, so it has to bump into him. So the shark puts his face down and he bumps into whatever he wants. He wants to see what it is. And then he comes back around and then he takes it. Well, that's the same way these guys do it on the street. Only the bump is not physical. It's a verbal bump. They come up to you and they ask you questions. They ask you questions that require an answer. They want to see the fear in your eyes. They want to hear the fear in your voice as you answer these questions. And they get right up in your face. They get close. I mean real close. When the guy asks you a question, he wants, which way is Clark Street? You got change for $1? You got a cigarette? What he's doing is invading your space. When he asks if you got change for $1, you got change for $1. There's one of them that's going to stand up there and she's going to open her purse and she says, no, all I got is this 20. I mean, it's like it says Iowa right across her forehead, you know? You gotta know that that's going to happen. Now, they say it's a jungle out there, okay? And if you're walking along a path in the jungle and you heard a twig snap behind you, do you think you would turn around? In a New York second. But you're walking along the streets, big city. You hear a car door slam, you hear the sound of running feet. You know what you do? You go, gee, I hope he runs by me. They can't do that either. You got to turn around and look at him. You got to see what's happening. You know when there's a problem, when the hair on the back of your neck stands up, and you say, uh-oh. When you say that uh-oh to yourself, that's when you know there's a problem. Something is wrong. Yeah, when you think something's wrong, then something is wrong. Now, when you turn around, I'm not saying to turn around and give him the big smile, but you turn around and see what he's doing. Then you have more time to react. And it's not just as they walk by, it's as they drive by. Let me show you a thing we call smash and grab. Okay, you're driving in your automobile. You got your purse here, right here in the seat. Now, it doesn't matter if you have it set here. Let me explain. I had a woman, this is what I've seen them do. They take the purse, they put it around the back, and they tie the knot. Then you take the seat belt, you put it around here once, and click that baby. Now, that purse is not going to go anywhere. But he can't tell that. He sees you drive by, see the purse sitting on the seat, he's going to try for that purse. So whether he can get that purse out of there or not, you're still going to have a broken window. Now, what if I put the purse in the back seat? He breaks the back window. Where does the purse belong? Where he cannot see it. Because if he can't see it, he's not going to try for it. Because if he can't see yours, you got to remember that 3 cars behind you, there's a woman driving down the street with the thing on her seat. Now, where does this purse belong? I'll tell you where it belongs. Purse belongs right underneath your knees, like this. He can't see it. He ain't going to try for it. That's where it is. Now, if you're sitting on the other side, somebody else is driving. You're sitting with the purse here. Window breaks, you cover your face. Purse is gone. And whoever's sitting here isn't going to be able to catch him either. You can't catch this 13-year-old kid in gym shoes. It's really impossible to do. Where does the purse belong? Under your knees. He can't see it. He won't try for it. Now, let's say you got a big purse, and you're sitting on this side with a big purse that won't fit comfortably under here. What you do is you put it real high on the right-hand side of the car, real high. You lay it up there so it looks like a floor mat. Or if you have a briefcase, you put that up there. It's dark color. It looks like a floor mat. I hate telling you that, though, because I know if I tell you to do that, it's going to end up right there. So I'd rather have you keep it under your knees. That's the safest place for you to put your purse. The only other place for you to put your purse is in the trunk of your car. And that's where the lady who's ahead of me in the toll booth line usually has hers. See, actually there were 2 jokes, see? Another thing we got to worry about, let's talk about walking into a bank. You walk into a bank, there's this counter when you walk right into the bank. And on that counter there are different slips, and they mean different things. Some of them are deposit slips, some of them are withdrawal slips, some are checking, some of them are all kinds of slips. Bad guy's out in front, he's watching. He can see, because they're all color-coded. He can see what color slip is picked up. Customer walks over to this first table. Customer picks up a savings withdrawal slip. That's the big one. That means big money's coming out. He sees it, walks right over to her car with the ice pick, runs through the tire, gets back in his car, and he waits. She comes walking out of the bank, doesn't flash her money, got it in her purse, she walks right into her automobile, locks the door, and she drives away. Everything is fine. 3 blocks later, she has this flat tire. And this nice man comes up and says, "Can I help you?" Pow! Now, where did she go wrong? Well, we can't get the banks to change the color of their slips, but what we can do is have you go to the back, take the slips from the back counter. Don't take them from the front counter because they can see you from the door. You have to weigh these things and make sure that you come out on the tough end of the stick. And that's what that's all about. Being a tough target also means when you're driving down the street, it doesn't have to be an abandoned area. It doesn't have to be a lonely highway. It doesn't have to be an alley. All it's got to do is be someplace that you're not comfortable. You're driving down the street. As you're driving down the street or the highway, somebody bumps into the back of your car. You pull it over to the side, you get out, and you look at it and you say, "My God, look at that." Well, you don't do that. You do not get out of the car. You stay inside that automobile, and you roll the window down only that far, because the only thing that's going to come out of that is your voice. You take your driver's license out from that plastic thing you keep it in, and you push it right up against the window and let him read it through the glass. Because I know if you slip that driver's license out the window and he won't give it back, you're going to come out of that car to get it, and I don't want you out of that car. According to the way the laws are written, you have to identify yourself. The actual exchange of driver's licenses never has to happen. If he won't identify himself, that's fine. Get his license plate. Keep your door locked and drive away. Now, where do you go? Well, where were you going? If you were driving to work, go to work. And what do you do when you get there? You call, say, "Look, I had an accident. Mile marker 57. I-55. 11:30 at night." And if this guy was legit, those two reports are going to find one another. And you're going to be fine. And if he's not legit and doesn't file a report, you don't care because you're safe. You do not have to put yourself into personal jeopardy to fill out a form for an insurance company. You don't have to do it. No insurance company can require you to do that. The idea is for you to be safe. And what if the car is disabled? You take that sunshade that you use, you put in the front over your dashboard to keep the sun out in the summertime. You take the black or dark blue magic marker and you write the word "help, call police" on it, and you put it in the back window. And any car that comes by is going to be able to call the police. And everybody, there's 100,000 new cellular phones every day, and they've all got them out there. And somebody can call the police, or they can got a CB radio, or the truckers will call. They will come by and help you. That's what you've got to do. And you have to stay in the car. Now, the reason I started to laugh is because I had one woman ask me one time, if the car is on fire, do I? No. If the car is on fire, you can get out of the car. But if the car's not on fire, stay in the car. I don't want you wandering down the highway. You're much more vulnerable wandering down the highway than you are in your car. Now, if this guy starts pounding on your car, if he starts banging on the front of it, or doesn't even have to be at an accident site. If somebody approaches you in a car and say, "Hey, get out of the car, I want to talk to you." You got your doors locked, you got your engine started. They say, "Come on out of the car, I want to talk to you." No. You start that engine up. Now the guy's in front of your car and he's beating on the hood and he won't get out of the way. What do you think you should do? Put it in gear. Now what do you do now? You drive away. Now you notice how slowly I said the word drive. I don't want you to say, "Well, JJ said it was okay, so I revved that baby up to 35 and I dropped it." You drive away, and that's exactly what you do. You just drive away. But you got to give them a reasonable chance to get out from in front of the car. Now that's what being a tough target is all about. Tough targets don't get selected. And that's the first part of the plan, is tough target. The second part of the plan is called denying privacy. Now, denying privacy not only means that you have to go toward where there are people and go toward the light and away from the darkness, or where the group is, and all that other denying privacy stuff that is so basic and you've heard over and over and over again. Denying privacy also means how to manage private places that you cannot deny. Elevators. You're waiting for the elevator. The door opens. You don't like who's on the elevator. Don't get on the elevator. Don't get on. Now what happens if you're on the elevator? You're on the elevator and the door opens, you don't like who gets on. Get off! Now you're standing next to the buttons because you're smart. You stand next to the buttons on the elevator. Somebody gets on that you don't like, you push that open the door button. You push it, oops, my floor, excuse me. Then you get right off the elevator. The problem is over, you're off the elevator. Now what happens if you get caught on an elevator? You're on an elevator and somebody attacks you. He didn't look so bad, so you didn't get off. And now he's attacking you on the elevator. So he spins you around, starts to rip at your clothes. What are you going to do? Well, what do you think you should do? The one thing you should not do is push that red button. And I'll tell you why. The red button is the only button on that elevator that stops the elevator. You don't want that elevator to stop. Stops the elevator, gives him privacy, not you. You don't want that to happen. You want that elevator to move. Here's what happens. He stops the elevator. You got to pull that button out. And if he pushes it in and you pull it out and he reaches up and he gives you a slap, you got to take that slap. And if he gives you a punch, you got to take that punch. Because you're taking a draw. You got to keep that button out. So how do we do that? We push all the other buttons. Once you push those buttons, they can't be unpushed. And every time that door opens, there's a chance for you to get away. And every time that door opens, there's a chance for you to yell for help. And every time that door opens, there's a chance that somebody to be there to help you. And that's what you want. You want that door to open and close all the time. Well, weigh them out. 2 women get off of 2 elevators. One got punched in the mouth, and one got raped. One's going to heal pretty fast. One might never heal. Which one do you want to be? These are easy to figure out when you're calm. And now is the time for you to make these decisions so you know what you have to do when the time comes. Along with elevators, when you're standing there waiting for the elevator, and there's no elevator coming, you say, well, it's a stairwell right here, and it's only 2 floors, maybe I'll just run upstairs. Those stairwells are, by city code, fireproof. How much sound do you think is going to come out of that stairwell if you get caught in there? None. You get caught in that stairwell, you're caught. Can't do that. If you want to exercise, go to the gym. Denying privacy also means you're not going to let anybody take you anywhere. You're not going to let them take you into that empty office or into that storeroom at work. You're not going to let anybody take you into an automobile. If I wanted to rob this woman, I could rob her right here, right here. If I'm pulling her into the car, she's at least going to get raped, because I could take her watch and her purse here. Regardless of what I tell her, when I get her in that car, it's not to rob her. What they do is they take them to what we call secondary crime scenes. The bad guys will take somebody to a place that they have more control. Now, why would I want to take her to a place I have more control to rob her? You got to know going in, she's at least going to get raped. If there was ever a line that you want to draw that you're not going to cross, it's that you will now allow anybody to take you to any other place, a secondary crime scene, into a car, for any reason at all. If they got a hold of you, you reach up with your hand and you grab their thumb. Now it's 4 against 1. This is the weakest part. You grab that thumb and pull it out and get away. If they got a hold of your coat, you come out of the coat. I don't care what the coat is made of. It could be made of any kind of animal skin. I don't care who gave it to you, how much it costs, or how old it is. There is nothing that you can put on your body that is worth getting raped for. Just ask the rape victim. And if you hold on to the coat, he's going to pull you and the coat into the car, and he's going to get both. So you let him pull the coat right off of you. The idea is you cannot get into that automobile for any reason at all. I know about half of you right here now are thinking about, what if this guy has got a gun? We'll do this gun thing. Guy has a gun, pulls out the gun, puts it in the rear and says, now get in the car. Now he's pulling her into the car. If she breaks and runs from him right away, out of 100 times, how many times do you think that the bad guy would shoot at her? Actually, it's very low. But I'll say 50% of the time. I'll say half. Half of the time he would shoot at her. And out of the 50 times he shoots at her, what percentage of the time do you think he's going to hit her? With his little pistol. That's low too. But I'll say half. Down to 25. Out of the 25 times that he would shoot at her and hit her, what percentage of the time do you think it's going to be a mortal wound or a serious injury? I'll give you half. Now we're down to 12 and a half times. That means 12 and a half times out of 100, if she breaks and runs from this guy right away, she's in deep trouble. That also means that 87 and a half times out of 100, she's not in such bad trouble at all. Now that's not bad odds. You can live with those. But the real statistic is that 2% are hit. 2% are shot. I just try to do it a little bit more graphically.
You've reached the end of side A. Please turn the cassette over to listen to side B.
There's a young lady, she was in the vestibule of her apartment building. Guy approached her with a gun, took her into the car. He drove her to the cash station. She went into the cash station and she took out the $200, and he came and she gave it back to the guy. He sent her to the cash station again. She went to the cash station, took out another $200 and brought that back to him. She's doing everything he said because he had a gun. He took her back into the car, drove her into the alley. And when he's finished with her in the alley, he takes it and he puts the gun to the back of her head and he pulls the trigger. Now what are her odds? 0, she died. You cannot get into a car with anybody for any reason at all. But you do get into cabs. Let's talk about taxi cabs. Denying privacy in a taxi cab. How can we do this? Well, taxi cabs are a private thing and you got to learn to manage them. And the way it works is this. Now, you want to put somebody in a taxi cab? Okay, I go like this. I go, good night, sweetheart. Okay, 2212, take my lady home. Slam the door. And I just said the number of that taxi cab. He's not going to fool with her because he knows I said the number of that cab and I'm going to remember it. He's not even going to give her that double around the block. He knows. Now, you get into a cab alone. How can you do this? Well, when you settle yourself into the cab, you say, oh, 2212. 2212, that used to be my old address, 2212. Or you could say, 2212, I think I'm going to play that in the lotto tomorrow, 2212. Now, you're not beating him over the head with it by saying, I don't like you and I'm going to remember your number. You're just saying it in a conversational manner. I'm going to play that in the lotto tomorrow. And he's not going to fool with you either. So that's the way you do taxi cabs. Trains, buses. Let's weigh this one out. We have an empty bus. Downtown location, 3:30 in the morning. Bus is completely empty. 2 women get onto this bus. One sits across from the driver, who has a radio telephone and can call the police. The other woman sits in the back behind the second door, the rear door. Now, the goof gets on there and he's going to rip off one of these purses. Which one do you think he's going to take? The one in the back. Not because she's older or younger, because she's more vulnerable and she doesn't know how to manage her privacy. She's got to sit up with the driver. The same thing with trains. Whether you're talking about interstate trains, you're talking about commuter trains, it doesn't matter. What you're talking about is sit with the guy who can make the phone call or radio for help. Sit with him in that area, because that's the safest area on that train. That's what denying privacy is all about. And that's what being a tough target is all about. Now we're going to go into the third part, and that's attracting attention. Okay, now I'm going to introduce you to the big tuna. Now, the big tuna is sitting in his living room, and he's sitting there and he's drinking his beer, and he's reading his newspaper. He's sitting there, and everything seems fine. Out on the lawn, they're trying to pull this woman into a car. And as they're trying to pull her into the car, she's yelling, "Help! Help! Police! Leave me alone! Help! Police! You're hurting me! Help!" And the big tuna, who is sitting here in his chair, says to himself, "I'm not going to get hurt. That's not going to cost me any money. I'm not going to get involved." And they don't. Same scenario, big tuna's in a chair. This time they're trying to pull this woman into the car. And as they're pulling her into the car, she's yelling, "Fire, fire, fire! Help, fire, fire!" It's easy, one word over and over and over again. But what happens to the big tuna is this. He says, "Now wait a minute, fire spreads. It could cost me some money, I could get hurt," and they get involved. And that's when they call. And that's what you yell. Yeah, one woman asked me, she says, "What happens if the fire trucks come?" Good, good. I mean, they got axe. They got the axe. The guy jumps off the car with his axe. That's good. The same thing if you're yelling for help. It doesn't matter if there's anybody around there to hear you. He can't take a chance on nobody being around there to hear you. He's got to react like there is somebody going to come and help you, and he's got to get out of there. So just because there's nobody around you does not mean you don't yell. You yell for help. You scream for help. You got to play it like you're all alone out there. You have to play it like there are no police. You have to understand that when this guy goes out there and looks up and down the street, he's looking for the police. And he's going to, if there's no police, he's going to do it right then. You have to understand that one of the phrases that comes over and over and over in all the reports that you take and all the witnesses that you interview and the victims that you interview, they say, "It happens so fast. It happens, boom, in real time." And that means if he goes out and doesn't see a squad car, he's going to get whatever he's going to go, he's going to be gone. That means the police car is not going to be there in the beginning. It's not going to interrupt him. The police will be there to take the report later. So you got to help one another. You got to play like there are no police. And if you see somebody in trouble on a sidewalk as you're driving by, you roll that window down and you yell out that window, "Get away from him! I'm calling the police!" Whether you got a phone or not, he doesn't know and he can't take a chance. You got to play it like you're alone out there. Well, that's 3. Here's the 4th and final one. The 4th and final area of the plan. This is to do something to this guy, to take some kind of action against this guy. And I'll tell you what we're talking about. There are very few axioms in the police business, and this is one of them. The initial contact between the victim and the offender is the time that the offender has the least amount of control over the situation. That's an axiom. Always. Now what happens? We know what's going to happen. We know what action you're going to take. But sometimes for different crimes, you take the action at different times. Rape is the most vicious crime that one adult can do to another. There is no doubt. There's 3 kinds of rapes. Date rape, acquaintance rape, stranger danger rape. And they have different expectations. With a date rape, when you go out on a date, there is an expectation of intimacy. You're going to be holding hands, or you're going to be dancing, or you're going to have dinner together, or you're going to be alone together even though you are out with a group. There's an expectation of intimacy. You're going to talk privately. Acquaintance rape. You go out with a group for a drink after work. You're together, but there's no expectation of intimacy that's close to date rape. It's a different level. You're in stranger danger rape, where there's not even an expectation of contact. Now, your actions are going to be the same. It's just that where it happens. With a stranger danger rape, as soon as this guy makes his approach, that's when you got to do whatever you're going to do, right then. With an acquaintance rape, when he crosses the line, whatever that line is, when he wants to take you someplace, or he wants to touch you, or he's getting fresh with you, whatever that line is, when he crosses that line you got to remember that no is no. And that's the line that you have. With a date, there is an expectation of more intimacy, and the line is in a different place than in the acquaintances. But when he crosses that line, no is no. And you do the same thing. Now, with a date rape, or with an acquaintance rape, the rapist will always let you kiss him. And you kiss him, and you reach up there, and you grab his lower lip, and you bite down until your teeth meet. You are ending the relationship. But you understand, when it becomes a crime, you take action that befits that crime. And rape is a vicious crime, and you take firm action. It's just that you take them at different times. We'll be right back with more information that could save your life. But before we do, join me in showing support for your public television station. Remember, we need to protect our most valuable asset, ourselves.
StreetSmarts, How to Avoid Being a Victim with Detective J.J. Bittenbinder has been made possible in part by Burger King Corporation. Burger King is proud to support this program as part of its commitment to education. At Burger King Corporation, we believe that education enriches everyone. And by the financial contributions of viewers like you.
Now that you know when, let's talk about what you use. Let's talk about guns. Now, probably the best thing you can do to one of these guys is to shoot him. We've got a young lady standing there in the corner, and she has a gun in her purse. Now, I'm not going to discuss the legality of why she has a gun in her purse or if it's legal in her state. All I'm saying is she's got a gun in this purse. And she's standing up there, and the guy comes up to her, and he says, "Give me your money." And she unzips the purse, and she pulls out the gun, and she points it at him. And then she hesitates. Intelligent people hesitate. The more intelligent you are, the longer you hesitate. Intelligent people understand the finality of the thing they're about to do. This is a final act that cannot be changed, undone, erased, altered in any way. This is a final thing, and they hesitate. And the bad guy comes by, he picks up that gun, and he pops you with it because he doesn't hesitate. Let's talk about knives. I have my knife. If you carry an open knife in your purse, the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to cut a hole in the end of the purse. The second thing, you're going to have that knife in the purse, and every time you put your hand in there, you're going to avoid it. Well, you're going to cut yourself once. Then you're going to cut yourself the second time. The second time you cut yourself on that knife, you're going to take that knife and you're going to close it up and you're going to put it back in the drawer. So that doesn't work. The keys between the fingers, my favorite. Women do not have the upper body strength to deliver a good punch. That's not their fault. That's the way God made them. Now, there's exceptions, but most of the time you get a pawing motion. Make a fist. Okay. She's got her keys between her fingers. She's almost to my face, but she can't reach it. But I could reach all the way down her back. The victims have short arms. The bad guys have long arms. So what you're dealing with is this. You're walking up to the plate to bat, down 2 strikes. Now, it's true, if you get in nice and close, and you got your keys between your fingers, and you pop him in the eye, you can do some heavy damage, and that's good. But I don't want you to put your faith in something that might not work. Now, before I say the next thing, I got to tell you that it's legal, okay? Mace is legal, all right? So let's talk about mace. Who's got mace here? You got mace? Let me see it. Okay. All right, now this is not bad. Now this is set up pretty good. Let me explain to you what I'm talking about. Okay, she's got it on her keychain. Now, you can mix it up and you can, I don't care what you do with it. If I find that button with my thumb, I know it's facing the other way. Now what you do is you reach in through the back and you throw that little switch. And then you mash down right on top of it. You don't have to open anything up and aim something. It's as easy to aim as a garden hose. 2 women are walking down the street. One of them's walking down the street like this. And the other one's walking down the street like this. Who's the most vulnerable one? See? Now this is great. It goes from here to fire in 1/10 of a second. Now this one will squirt about 8 feet. That's about 8 feet. If I can keep somebody 8 feet away from me, I'm happy. Now there are several kinds of mace. I use the term mace to generically describe the various types of self-defense sprays. And that's what you want, a self-defense spray. Just buy the one that suits you the best. 3 things I got to tell you about mace. You cannot take it on a commercial airliner. You cannot take it into the state of Wisconsin. I think it melts the cheese is what And if you take it into the state of California, you have to register it. Now, there might be a couple other states that have got some similar rules. So if you're living in another state, check with your local police department to find out if it's legal. And it works. Do you know why it works? Because you use it. Guy comes up to you and say, "You got change for it?" "Yeah, here, Clark Street this, pal." It works. Thank you very much. Now, what do we do when we get out of the car? We get out of the car, female gets out of the car, takes the keys, drops right into the bottom of the purse, zips the purse up, opens the door, gets out, takes her purse and her other thing. And now, uh-oh, there's somebody there. She's got to get back in the... You keep your keys in your hand. Now, guys do that. They have to do that. Guys have to keep the keys because, look, when a guy shuts off the car, he can't get in his pockets while he's sitting down. So he's got to have his keys in his hand when he gets out of the car. So I want you to do the same thing. You keep your keys in your hand until you get out of the car. And you look around. If everything is fine, then you drop the keys into the bottom of the purse. But don't put those keys away until you get out, until you look around. And if there's something going on, you get right back in that car and start that engine. And if something happens, drive away. What happens when you approach your car? You approach your car whether it's the same, whether it's been in the parking lot at the airport for a week, or if it's in a supermarket parking lot and it's only been there for an hour. As you approach your car, you look at it. Is there anybody hanging around the car? If there's somebody hanging on the car, you go back in there and talk to somebody in the supermarket and say, "Hey, there's somebody out there by my car." And that's all. Now, if you're being pulled into a car, or you're running for somebody and you trip, and you get knocked down, and somebody's attacking you while you're knocked down, what do? Well, you swivel around on your butt, and you keep your legs facing toward this guy. And it doesn't matter if you're wearing high heels or flats or gym shoes or boots or you're barefoot. You keep your feet facing toward this guy and you kick at him like this. If he grabs one foot, you kick with the other foot. Women do not have the upper body strength to keep a man's body weight off of them with the power in their arms. And neither do most men. But you do have the strength in your legs to keep this guy's body weight off of you, and that's what you use. You kick at him one leg at a time, and you can keep him away from you. And you're laying there screaming and yelling fire. He's obviously going to think you're tougher than the one who says, no, all I got is this 20. That's what you got to do. Now, fighting is a good thing. But if flee is an option, flee is always your best option. I'd rather have you get out of there. I think you would too. Let me show you. I'm going to walk you through one of these things. Young lady standing on a corner with a purse in her hand. And the guy comes up to her and says, give me your money. She says, okay. And she unzips the purse and she gives him the money. Here's the money. And he says, no, I want that ring. That was my grandmother's. Give me that ring. Okay, don't hurt me. I'll give you the ring. Here's the ring. Now a watch, and then a watch, and the pin, and the bracelet, and the necklace, and the credit cards. Okay. And he says, you're wearing slacks. Pull your slacks down. You told me you weren't going to hurt me. Lady, I know that if you've got your slacks around your ankles, you're not going to chase me out of this alley. Now pull them down so I can run away. And she pulls her slacks down, and she gets raped. Now you can stop that story anywhere along the line and learn the same lesson from it. He's lying to her, but he's telling her a lie she wants to believe. And when you tell somebody a lie that they want to believe, desperately, they're going to believe it. At that point in time, you wanted to believe that so bad, you believed it. Even though the next day you know it was silly. What I'm trying to tell you is you can't believe anything these people tell you at all. They're all going to lie to you. He's going to threaten you. He's going to cajole you. He's going to make you promises, whatever it takes to get you to do whatever he wants to do, whether it's get into a car or go into a storeroom or whatever it is. He's not going to tell you the truth. And you got to understand that going in. Now, where did she make her mistake? She made her mistake standing there waiting for request number 2. Let me show you what I'm talking about. All right, now I'm not a policeman. I'm just Joe Citizen walking down the street. And a guy comes up to me and says, give me your money. And I said, okay, pal. Hand goes in the pocket. Out comes the money. Show the money. This is all I got. And then what happens next? The money goes that way, and I go this way. Now, there's no hesitation. There's no wait. It's the money goes that way, and I'm going this way, and I'm yelling fire. Now, here's the situation. The goof is standing there. This guy and his bundle of noise are running this way, and the money is over there all by itself. Quiet. Which way do you think he's going to go? There are no absolutes, remember that? But some are closer than others. Most of the time, he's going to go that way. So that's what I suggest that you do. Get yourself a money clip. You put a $5 bill and 2 singles in it. Put the 5 on the outside. And you keep it in your pocket. Or if you have a purse, keep it in the outside zipper pocket of your purse. And then you've always got it with you. Any place you can get to it readily. But you pull it out and say, this is all I got. And throw it one way and go the other. That works. Let's talk about where this stuff can happen. This stuff can happen anytime, any place, to anyone. There's a young lady who was very effective and efficient. She focused on being effective and efficient. The most effective, efficient way for her to get from the L to her house was through the alley. So she went through the alley. Now, when she got into her house, the most effective and efficient way to do it, she would open up the door and let the dog out. And so she wouldn't have to stand there and wait for the dog to do his stuff in the backyard. She would go about her business in the house. And when she heard the dog scratching around the kitchen, then she'd come up and close the door. No time wasted. Effective and efficient. Well, she picked up a trailer coming through the alley. Entered through the back door when the dog was out. Confrontation started in the back, on the back porch area. Went through the kitchen where he picked up the knife. The dog was stabbed in the kitchen. He chased her through the dining room. The blouse was torn off in the dining room because we found all 4 buttons in a very small area. We found her in the living room. She had been stabbed 107 times. Let's talk about family. Let's talk about your kids. 3 quick tips for the kids. If your child is approached by somebody in a vehicle, you have the kid turn around and go opposite the car, because it's easier for the kid to turn around and go the other way than it is to have this guy turn his car around. Number 2, you allow no dialogue between a stranger and your child. I don't care what he says or how he opens a conversation, you allow no dialogue at all between a strange adult and your child. The adult will always win. Always, always win. You can't take that chance with your kid. And the third thing is this. If the child is approached on foot, you tell the child to run. Some of them run just for the joy of it. And they run fast. And the only restriction you would put on them is just a little guidance. If there's a big street halfway between home and school, you tell them, look, if you cross the big street, then run home. But if you didn't get to the big street yet, turn around and run back to school. Don't get real fancy. Well, if it's an alternate Wednesday and Aunt Molly's out in the yard, you don't want to hear that. Keep it simple. You can't put an old head on young shoulders. And the third thing you do, before you tell the kid to run, you tell them to drop the books. Because every father has stood in front of his daughter and he said, young lady, I just spent $43 for these books. I don't want you to lay them in the snow. I don't want them at the library. I don't want them at Becky's house. Where you are, these books are, and where these books are, I want you to be. Well, he just reinforced the wrong thing here. He just reinforced the wrong thing. And then I get the little girl, the 9-year-old girl at Foster and Sheridan, gets chased into an alley by a guy, and he pulls her panties down and he fondles her. And she's telling her father, she says, Daddy, I almost got away, but the book bag was so heavy. And the father's heart is breaking. He reinforced the wrong thing. This goof is not after her for her spelling homework or for her history book. And if the books are gone when you get back, that's okay too. The little girl gets to take a draw too, see? You get to throw the money. You get to come out of your coat. The little girl gets to drop the books. Well, that's 4 of them. We talked about tough targets. We talked about denying privacy. We talked about attracting attention. We've talked about doing something, taking some action. And that's all 4. Those are the 4 parts of your plan. And you got to remember that you got to have a plan, because the bad guys are out there. They really are out there. And it's up to you. You have the responsibility for yourselves, to yourselves, for your own safety. And you don't have to be the toughest man in the world or the toughest woman in America. You just got to be the toughest one there. A burglar does not walk down the street and say, this is the toughest house on this whole block. I think I'm going to try it. A burglar looks for the easy one. He looks for the broken door, the open window. He looks for the easiest one. The same thing with these people when they pick their victims. You just cannot be the easiest one out there. And out there is out anywhere. You could live in a nice neighborhood. You can work in a nice neighborhood. And it doesn't matter. When these people hunt deer, they go where the deer are. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. I hope you learned a few tips on how you can protect your life. Now join me in protecting your public television station's life. Pledge your support today.
This is PBS.